Hey everybody, Sujan Patel here, co-founder and CEO of Mailshake. Welcome to another episode of Shake Sales. Today, I'm excited to talk to Drew Clark. We're going to talk about really what's happening in sales, which is not so good, but how do you make the best with the bad? So what's happening in sales is leads are down. You're probably losing more deals. Like your win-loss ratio is down. It's a hard time to sell. Let's talk about how to make that a better time. So Drew, welcome aboard. For folks that don't know you, would you mind just giving a quick intro?
Yeah, thanks, Sujan. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Drew Clark, head of sales at Swordfish and Heartbeat.ai. We work in the contact information space, data space, lead enrichment, all things enriching your CRM with data that, goes to work. I was the first employee at Swordfish and love it. Been here ever since, obviously. And yeah, excited to speak to you, Sujan.
Yeah, so there's an industry trend, and mostly we're going to talk about B2B SaaS or B2B here mostly, right? Because there's a
Of
lot
course.
of stuff. Let's narrow this down to B2B. Most buyers are feeling they're seeing a lower volume of deal flow, inbound leads, um, and sales come in, right? So there's probably things. I guess like let's accept that that is the new normal, right? So your team might be less busy on demos. What can people do? We were talking about this before we hit record. What do you do to kind of hit numbers? What do you do to like close deals today
Sure. I
with
think,
the lower deals?
people always say, and it's a great thing to follow. You learn a lot in your losses. A loss isn't a loss as long as you've learned something. And I think you always learn a lot in your wins. Of course, is something to always focus on. You're right. Volume's down. Calendars aren't as full. Yet growth rate's still got to be consistent, and you've got to hit quota. So I think some things that we've learned are really, really honing in on the trends that you see in those one deals and understanding if those trends have transpired into the deals that you've lost. If they have, understand why. If they haven't, there's your answer. um, I think some trends that we've certainly seen in some of our one opportunities are things like multi-threading. The moment you get multiple stakeholders into your communications for a purchase, the chances and the win probability, goes up tenfold. Um, Other things are sales cycle. The longer that cycle is, the
Mhm.
less chance you are to close the deal because it becomes, less of a priority. I think that's very much so apparent if you're selling into small, medium businesses. Um, and the last thing, of course, is your competition. Because SaaS in general is becoming more and more saturated as the years go on. We've probably felt it a lot in the back end of last year and certainly going into this year. You've got to know your competition. You've got to know what makes you better, but of course, how that aligns with what the customer may value. And it may well be that they're better off with the competition, but certainly understand why that is and come across from a value adding perspective. I hate that term, but it's probably best suited there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think like one of the things that's in 2022 and earlier, probably the first half of 22 and all the way back to maybe 2010, we were in this ridiculously high, everyone was buying cycle. Okay. Right. Like sales reps weren't hard selling, buyers were buying. We are now no longer in the buy cycle. We are in you have to sell this. If people might be interested, like for example, I'm looking for uh, software to do NPS. I'm looking, but not buying anything and not the need for me to fill this is low. It's one of the things I want to do, but I'm going to shop around. I'm going to do this, blah, blah, blah. So two things happening. I'm not as like the buyer's not as aggressively like motivated to buy. And then two, like you said, competition, they're shopping around, right? And so understanding losses really important because did you lose to competition? Did that change? Did your competition change? Super important things. And then it's the why, right? Like, what is it? Is it price? Is it a feature? Is it what, we can hypothesize here, but I guarantee if you look at your lost reasons or you actually start to measure it more specifically or track it more specifically, you'll find out what it is you're losing to. I'll give you a very simple example at Mailshake. We were losing to there's like two reasons we're losing deals. Budget, so pricing, we were too expensive. And then number two was competition, subcategory X feature, right? We just didn't have that feature. Like that was that simple. So what do? Simple thing is build the feature, right? And we got like 10, 15% lift in that. Well, that reason became not a problem anymore. But anyways, how, and then let's dig into multi-threading, right? Obviously you need something like Swordfish to enrich your data so you can multi-thread. But what do you think is the right level of multi-threading? Or can you go too aggressive?
Yeah, I certainly think you can get too aggressive. It's all about timing, and it's also about the acumen in which you come across. I'd certainly say that nearly every single opportunity a CFO is involved, or someone within a budgetary controlling standpoint. At what point you get them into the sales cycle is very important. I think with SaaS, it's very much so trial based. It's very difficult to metrically understand whether a product is going to be valuable until that trial is complete. It's a great way to gauge ROI and, of course, a proof of concept. When a CFO looks at, an email from a vendor, first thing they look at is price. And there's probably a CFO that maybe will tell me different, but I like to think it's price. Of course,
I've
they're
not
good with
heard
the
of one
numbers,
that says
right?
I've not heard of one that says no price.
Right. So they're going to look straight at the number. And the second thing is, what is this going to add to us? And does that financially make sense? You're only going to be able to explain that once you've done a trial. So I think, involving the economic buyer is at that time. There's a lot of talk that I hear about growth swelling, of course. If you are running a trial of a product with a number of users, you want to try and really get them to evangelize that within the teams. You want to come from the bottom, multi-threading, and from the top. You've got, the person who's directly involved of managing that team and the person who overlooks many, many teams. So yeah, when I think about multi-threading, it's coming from all angles, and it's all about timing in which you get those involved. But something that we've seen at Swordfish is if you involve the champion, of course, is the first person in there, growth swell the users from the bottom, and then also include the champion's manager from the top, then you're in a great, great place to be able to get in the CFO's inbox or on the phone, and you've got a good opportunity. But that's what we've seen so far. I don't know whether you've seen something similar, Sujan.
I think the really deeply understanding the pain point and the value for the actual buyer is important. So like, I'm going to go with this NPS example. I actually am not shopping around for this, but it's a really easy one, right? Why am I the buyer? Why do I care about NPS? Why would the CFO and you multi-thread through, 3-4 folks, why the heck would they care about why I care about it or what, value that they have, right? CFO, talk about it. It's money. So is there money in NPS, right? Can you demonstrate, if you're selling NPS, can you demonstrate there is money in it? That's what I would send to the CFO, right? But really, I think it's really understanding the why behind the buy at the folks that you're engaging with. Because if you don't get their, I guess, attention, or like you don't connect on the first or second try, in the sense of like they care about what you're saying, you're now just sending more people emails and calls and
Right.
whatnot. Um, so yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents. But what have you seen work? Like, have you seen like a cadence that or is it really bespoke in your opinion of like when it comes to like timing for multi-threading?
It's very bespoke. I think every company works differently, and people get involved in different areas. So it is very bespoke. Automation has been, you know, I'm going to use the word abused, I think, over the last 2 years, to the point that it's become less effective. So a cadence that would involve, blanket emails. Personally, I wouldn't read them if they came in my inbox. So, I don't think our buyers would. What I would say is, it's very important early on to understand what that process looks like. And if the person you're speaking to can't give you transparency on, how their process works, more incentive to get multi-threading and understand, at what stage do people get involved, and you align yourself as best as possible to how people are buying, and of course align that to the way that you're going to sell. But that's what I would say. It's all bespoke. Everyone's different. Just make sure you do your best at understanding how they're different and how best to align to
Mhm.
that.
So I want to end this with one last question. So what have we talked about a lot, some negatives, right, of the industry,
Of
what
course.
you can do about it. What have you seen tactically improve your close rate, in Q4, Q1 of this year? Like what's working for you to help move the needle to keep growth going?
Sure. We've spoken about multi-threading, so certainly that is something that we've put a big focus on internally. Um, we've worked on action plans as a sales team. So um, every customer that comes in, you get a good understanding of the health and confidence of that customer, and really doubling down into those very confident deals and building an action plan. We've worked very hard as a team to sit together and discuss deals, and everyone give their 2 pence as to what they think they would do, constructing messages together. But it's really making the most of the pipeline that we've got, and involving everyone as a team to really try and get those deals over the line. What we've seen as an industry as a whole over the last 3 months in the back end, I think it's picked up a bit, to be honest with you. Last summer was scary, but I think it's
Oh yeah.
picked up, and maybe that's down to us putting our heads together, but then also the confidence of closing and getting that momentum. It just keeps you carrying through, right? And it forever will. So just keeping that up.
Love it. Yeah. I want to share my three real quick. Sales training, like getting like lower volume. Our whole team now has more time to just get better at what they do.
Yeah.
So we use Avoma. We like record all of our things. We review everything um, on a weekly basis, right? So everyone's getting a little bit better and like uh, and really digging into like fixing things you say like or like not getting to the value, or maybe not. I found one concrete thing is our sales team was doing a great job demoing the product, but they were doing a okay job getting the buyer to the transaction of closing,
Okay.
right? So they'd like answer all the questions in the world that they asked, but they weren't moving the deal forward to like okay, are you going to buy now, right? So the deal timeline actually extended. So number two is multi-threading. We just have more capacity to do it. We didn't need to do it before. Close rate was actually really good. It wasn't until we found it was a problem that we found out it could be better. And number three was like the whole company getting an understanding of what sales do, so we can help the whole company can say like think about, okay, development could do, maybe this feature needs to be product and development. This needs to be prioritized because it's hurting sales. That information wasn't always, the dots weren't connected for the why of this feature always. So that was a simple example, but there's a lot of other things like we revisited our value because budget became a bigger issue. I mean, budget's kind of the number one issue everywhere, but like really dug into like, okay, well, how do we increase the value? Right? Or do we need to lower price? This is like we ended up doing nothing with it, but it was more of a re-auditing our price point.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's just reminding yourself of the core principles and just drilling down and keeping it consistent. So I like that. I like that, Sujan.
Love it. So where can people go to follow along your journey and kind of uh, sign up for Swordfish?
Sure, yeah. So I'm not as active on LinkedIn as I'd like to be, but I'm certainly reachable there. So Drew Clark, Swordfish, that'll take you right to my page. And then in terms of getting in touch with us at Swordfish, it's swordfish.ai. Or if you're in the healthcare industry, we have a healthcare specific website, which is heartbeat.ai. So yeah, feel free to ping us there, and one of the team or myself will be in touch.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Drew. Look forward to our next chat.
Awesome. Appreciate your time.